A'udhu billah minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful.
Today, we are diving deep into the opening of Surah An-Najm, which means the star. And at the heart of it all is this really powerful idea that revelation isn't something we struggle to climb up and reach. No, it's a light that comes down to us, descending into our awareness, kind of like a shooting star that just brilliantly lights up the night sky. So let's get into it.
So the surah opens with this just breathtaking cosmic oath. God swears by a star as it falls, as it descends. And you have to ask why. Well, it's to immediately, powerfully, and publicly stand by the Prophet Muhammad, who's referred to here so gently as your companion. It's like God is saying, listen up. This isn't a story of some guy getting lost in his own ideas. This is a testimony of pure truth.
And here's the crucial point. The source of his speech is being made crystal clear. It's not coming from Hawa, that very human mix of ego, whim, and personal desire. Not at all. The source is purely divine. It is nothing but revelation revealed. That distinction, it's absolutely central to understanding what prophecy even is. So if it's not from him, who is the agent here? Who is the teacher? The verse tells us it's one mighty in power. And this, of course, is the angel Gabriel. He's described as being firm, powerful, and complete. It's telling us this revelation is being transmitted through a channel of immense strength and absolute clarity. And here, the imagery just becomes so dramatic, so vivid. Try to picture this. The angel first appears on the highest horizon, just filling the entire sky. And then there's this movement, a drawing near, a descending, until the closeness is described with this incredible metaphor, 2 bows' length or nearer. It's an encounter of just awesome, overwhelming intimacy. And this is the culmination of that encounter. The revelation is transmitted from the divine through the angel to his servant. And the verse ends with this profound validation. The fuad, the spiritual heart, did not lie about what it saw. The vision was real. The perception was certain, no doubt.
So we've just witnessed this profound, intimate scene. But what did it all mean in its own time for the people who first heard it? Now we're going to look at the outer testimony, setting the scene of revelation and seeing how these verses were a powerful declaration in a world full of doubt. You have to imagine early Makkah. The prophet's experiences were being mocked, brushed off as just dreams or fantasies or worse. So the Quran's response isn't to get defensive. Instead, it invokes the majesty and precision of the cosmos. It's saying, look, just as a star's path is real and true, so is this encounter between Jibreel and Muhammad. This isn't a myth. This is a direct testimony, a reality check for the critics.
Okay, let's zoom in on one of the most beautiful and frankly most debated phrases in this whole passage, 2 bows' length. On the surface, it sounds like a simple measurement of distance, right? But as we're about to see, this image, it's actually a key that unlocks a bridge between the outer world of events and the inner world of the heart. So you have 2 main ways of seeing this. On one hand, the classical commentators understood it quite literally. They said, yep, this describes the physical closeness between the prophet and the angel Jibreel, a real event in space and time. But then you have the Sufi masters, and they saw something else entirely. For them, this is a metaphor for a spiritual state. Picture 2 bows. One is divine lordship, the other is human servanthood. And through love and surrender, they curve toward one another, getting so close they almost form a single circle, where the separation between them just dissolves into communion. And that brings us to the inner, mystical reading of these verses. And this is where it gets really fascinating, because from this perspective, the entire passage just transforms. It's no longer just a historical account of one event. It becomes a timeless map for the spiritual seeker's own journey, for your journey. Just listen to how the great Sufi master Al-Kushairi reframes the whole image. He says the star isn't just some object in the sky anymore. It becomes the light of the spirit, setting, like the sun, into the horizon of your heart. Why? So that we, travelers here on earth, can find our direction. It's an inner compass. And then Ibn Arabi, wow. He gives us this profound insight that just changes everything. He says this nearness they're talking about, it has nothing to do with moving from point A to point B. True spiritual nearness happens when the feeling of separation vanishes, when those inner veils of ego that make us feel distant from the divine just fall away. So when you look at it this way, the verses become a step-by-step guide to this unveiling. Step 1, a flash of insight. The star enters your awareness. Step 2, you have to stay firm, guided through that experience. Step 3, your speech gets purified of ego. You stop talking from that place of I want. Step 4, your intellect is illuminated by spirit, by a higher knowing. Step 5, you draw near not by reaching up, but by descending in humility and service. And finally, step 6, your heart, now polished like a mirror, sees things as they truly are. The prophet's heart becomes the prototype, the model for every single one of us.
All right, let's switch gears for a second because this is really cool. What if modern science, in its own language of data and observation, is actually describing the very same patterns that Revelation talks about in the language of meaning? I mean, think about it. The journey of a photon, traveling for millions of years from a star to finally reach our eye, isn't that a perfect metaphor for Revelation traveling from the unseen world to the seen? Or what about neuroscience? It's found that in states of deep awe, our heart rhythms and brainwaves actually synchronize. That sounds a lot like the heart did not lie about what it saw. Even that two bows image, you could see it as a poetic hint at the curvature of space-time, where things can be intimately connected without physically merging. And maybe that brings us to the heart of the matter. Science is incredible at measuring the patterns of the universe, but Revelation, its job is to reveal the purpose, the meaning behind those very same patterns. They're not in conflict. They're like two different ways of knowing the same reality. So this is all beautiful theory, but what does it mean for us, for you and me, right now? How do we take all this and actually apply it? How do we find our own personal star, our own nudge?
Well, here's a kind of practical map. First, start to recognize those unexpected moments of clarity, those little flashes of insight as your personal star descending. Value them. Second, guard your speech. Try to let your words come from a place of sincerity, not ego. Third, align your horizons, meaning try to unify your inner feelings with your outer actions, make them one. Fourth, understand that the path to closeness isn't about gaining power, it's about humility and service. And finally, learn to trust your heart, that deep, intuitive certainty of your spiritual heart, your fuad. Follow it.
So let's just take a moment and sit with this prayer, this munajat, which is like an intimate conversation with the divine. It's a plea, asking for that descending star to ignite the spark that maybe we've buried under too much logic. Asking that we can finally trust our heart's vision and not let our mind argue away the certainty of love. We've spent our time exploring this idea of revelation as a descent, a light coming down to ground us in truth. But the Surah doesn't stop there. It goes on to describe the prophet's journey upwards, a celestial ascension. So the question I want to leave you with is this. If revelation is a descent of light, what does it mean for our own vision to then ascend?